I'm photographer David duChemin, and this is Vision is Better, a sometimes weekly podcast about the craft and art of photography. Welcome here. Hey, welcome here. This is episode 44 of Vision is Better, and today I want to talk to you about photography a la mode. In other words, I want to talk modes. There was a good article written by Eric Kim, who is predominantly known for his street photography. It was on Petapixel, and he wrote this article about not being too precious about which mode you use, and I guess kind of in reaction to the feeling that, you know, a real photographer wouldn't use P mode, wouldn't use program mode. And, you know, once in a while an article like this rears its head, and usually they are not so well perspectived as Eric Kim's articles. So kudos to Eric for that article. If I remember, I'll put it in the show notes, but a simple search of Petapixel will get you there. The point was this. The point was that we need to stop being so precious about which mode we use and concentrate more on the point of the whole exercise, which for most of us is the photograph. I have gone from using fully manual cameras, obviously in fully manual mode, to using Aperture Priority, to using occasional program mode, setting it to P, and time value or shutter priority, and all the way back to now I primarily focus, now I primarily use manual mode. And I would never look at your photographs, and nor would I hope you would look at mine and say, this is the one where David used manual mode. You can tell because it's slightly pretentious. No, you would look at the photograph, and I hope you would think, that's a great photograph. And not once would you think, did he use aperture priority mode, or was that more of a shutter priority mode? See, the thing is, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to tell what mode it is by looking at the photograph. And I think that's the point. Modes have, like anything else in the camera, they have a purpose, and sometimes that purpose is suitable to your vision and your the execution, and sometimes it's not. So if you're photographing something where the aperture is important, where you feel you have better control in aperture priority by telling the camera, change everything else, but don't for the love of God change my aperture, because that's important to me. I want a particular depth of field. Then use aperture priority mode. If you need to be panning at a very certain shutter speed, but the light's changing a little bit and you want to still to use a program mode like time value or shutter priority, then that also would be a good choice. Set it to 1/15th, let the camera make the choices, and keep an eye on your histogram, and then move that EV compensation button so that you get the best possible exposure. If you are doing this mindfully, if you're watching your histogram, if you're keeping an eye on your exposures, especially if the camera's, you know, it's kind of second guessing. If it's a high contrast scene, it might read here and it might read here, depending on where you're pointing the camera and where it's reading from. You may find some of your results jumping all over the place. That's where I like to use manual. But even if you're using shutter priority mode and you're using the EV comp, essentially you're working in a manual mode. For me, the point is not whether you use manual mode, whether you use program mode, whether you use AV or shutter speed or something they haven't come up with yet. The point is whether you're paying attention. The point is whether you understand what you're trying to accomplish. And for me, the best way I learned that was manual mode. And once in a while, I used to go back to manual mode, and I would play with it for a while just to be to kind of brush up on my skills and make sure they were still sharp. Now I have come back to mostly, though not always, shooting in manual mode. But again, it has nothing to do with whether I'm a professional. It has nothing to do with really how good my photographs are. And ultimately, the only thing that matters is the photograph. So, my encouragement to you is this. If you have the time, and I hope you do, because you should be taking your craft at least relatively seriously, and you can't do that without investing time. If you have the time, play with manual mode once in a while. Get to the point where it's very front of mind for you, where you're thinking, what's my aperture? What's my shutter speed? What is my ISO? When you get to that point, then jump into program mode, aperture mode, shutter mode, but pay attention. That's the only thing that really matters. Don't let the gear and the processes pull you out of the scene. Don't let them distract you. That's one of the reasons program mode, one of the program modes, might be good for you, because you can let the camera make those choices for you while you concentrate on things that frankly have more to do with the heart of an image most of the time, and that is the composition and the choice of moment and all of the other things that go into making a great photograph, where you're going to stand, when you're going to press the shutter. Let the camera do some of that for you if you need that in order for the process to be as painless as possible for you. But ultimately, you still need to be aware. You still need to know what each of these modes is going to do. You need to know where the weakness is, and that's where EV compensation comes in. I used to shoot aperture priority mode all the time, but I always was on my Canons, I was doing the EV compensation, so that when I looked at my scene, made the shot, I looked at my histogram, and I knew, okay, it's going to be up or it's going to be down. If it was predominantly light scene, I'd push the EV comp up a little, because the camera wants to make it a little darker. If it's a darker scene, camera tends to want to make it a little closer to gray, so I'm going to remove a couple stops of compensation or of exposure with the compensation. Knowing how the camera is going to work, knowing the choices it's going to make, allows me to trust it a little more and let it do its job while I am composing. I don't care what mode you use. I will not look at your photographs and say, here's his manual mode phase. Unless by photographing manually and having more control, you just happen to like the process better and engage in the process more, and therefore make stronger photographs. That's also a possibility. But as I said, I think in the last episode, that the word should not be in your vocabulary as a creative person. I want to back it up now. Forget what mode you should use. Ask yourself, what mode is possible for you to use? Is it more advantageous to use aperture priority mode when I'm 30 feet underwater with a scuba camera and things are, happening pretty quickly? It might well be. Is it advantageous for me to take time to use manual mode when I'm out shooting on the streets, and very quickly with my Fuji I can just dial things in without having to second guess, is the camera going to miss this one, or am I going to have to pay too much attention to EV comp? I have to tell you, I don't even know how to use EV comp on my Fujis, because I'm never using it. I'm always photographing in manual mode. And that's not a point of pride. It gives me the greatest control. So here's your takeaway. Whatever gives you the greatest amount of control, whatever allows the camera to get out of the way as quickly as possible, as long as you understand what's going on and you're not letting this lead you just into being a lazy photographer, I think you're probably doing okay. So whatever mode you use, stay present, be there, and remember, above all, gear is good, but vision's better. We'll see you next time.